All right, we're going to go ahead and try to get started here. I've got 3:32 actually. So this is the General Government Appropriations Subcommittee. So thank everybody for being here. It's good to see everybody back in town. I know I'm glad to be here. It's a little change of scenery for me. So always good to get back into it. Before we get started, let's do a quick word of prayer. Let my Vice Chairman, Dwayne Hill, open us up. What number are you, Dwayne? 20? All right.
You ready? Let us pray. Our dear kind Heavenly Father, as we come to you with humble hearts, seeking your wisdom and guidance, Lord, in everything that we do. We want to thank you, Lord, for all the blessings you've bestowed upon us here in the great state of Georgia and the United States of America. We ask again, Lord, that you help us, dear Heavenly Father, to have understanding minds and, Lord, to do the work that would be pleasing to you. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dwayne. And again, members, thank you for being here. And I know we may have some that are joining by Zoom as well. David's getting them pulled up, but we'll go ahead and get started. And we'll go ahead and start with Director Rick Dunn with EPD. Come on down.
Members of the subcommittee, I'm Rick Dunn, Director of the Georgia Environmental Protection Division. Georgia EPD, got a presentation here. David, should it be projecting up or? I'll go ahead and continue on. Members, you should have a paper copy anyway. Georgia EPD is a state agency charged with protecting Georgia's air, land, and water resources through the authority of various state and federal environmental statutes. We implement and administer about 24 state environmental laws, and we have full permitting and enforcement authority for all major federal environmental laws, including the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, and the Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, or RCRA. Mr. Chairman, most of our functions are regulatory. We establish and enforce rules and standards regarding water quality, water supply, drinking water supply, dam safety, air quality, solid waste, hazardous waste, surface mining, and underground storage tanks. We also administer the Hazardous Waste Trust Fund and the Solid Waste Trust Fund. We do licensing for some professions such as well drillers, landfill operators, and industrial radiography. We maintain an emergency response team capacity to respond to the release of hazardous or toxic materials on a 24/7 basis. And we operate a laboratory capable of analyzing air, water, and soil samples for a large number of constituents to ensure compliance with state and environmental regulations. If you go to slide 3, I've got a few slides here and I'll be very, very brief with them, Mr. Chairman, just to attempt to put the budget into context. This is our base budget. EPD's base budget is small, about $124 million, but it can be complex. We have nearly 50 separate revenue sources, with only one of those sources being state appropriated funds. Total amount, again, is about $124 million. By budget, 32% of that are state funds, 24% are federal funds, and 44% our largest funding source are other funds. The federal funds, perfect, thank you. The federal funds are primarily from the Environmental Protection Agency, almost $30 million. And the largest funding source are other funds. These are fees that EPD collects and retains. They include underground storage tanks fees, vehicle inspection maintenance fees, Title V permitting fees, and drinking water lab fees. I'll also want to point out, Mr. Chairman, that EPD also collects a number of fees that's not reflected here in those other fees that we collect and return to the state treasury. Typically, those are about $20 to $25 million each year that we do so. We can go to the next slide. It's a little bit about Epd Organization. We have about 700 employees. We have locations, most of our entire water branch administration and the hazardous waste portion of our solid waste program, as well as our water programs, are located here on Capitol Hill. We have offices in the towers, ag building. We also have offices out at the trade port, a space that we lease. Our air branch is down there, as well as most of our solid waste program is down there as well. We have 7 district offices with about 88 employees. Albany, Athens, Atlanta, Augusta, Brunswick, Cartersville, and Macon. These are the groups that handle many of our complaint investigations, emergency response, inspection, and compliance activities. We operate a lab out in Peachtree Corners, and we also have agriculture water permitting offices in Tifton and in Dawson. Look at the next slide, just a history of our expenditures over time. This is the last 20 or so years. You see they've pretty much fluctuated in a fairly narrow range. Our nominal fiscal year 21 expenditures is almost identical to our fiscal year 2002 expenditures, but that's just for your information as well. And then the next slide, slide 6, is how we spend our money. About half of our funds are spent on personnel, and about 30% are spent on contracts, with the remaining 20% split among a number of object classes. Okay, to the proposed budget changes. We're just covering amended fiscal year 22, so we have 3 items, and I'll go over each of these separately, Mr. Chairman. But the number, they're all under section 34, which I believe is on page 11 of 18 on your tracking sheet. We're in 34.3 is the environmental protection program. That's where all of our changes are going to be. The first change is the $5,000 pay increase that was included. It's the state funds portion of the $5,000 pay increase that was included in the governor's budget for $1,139,613. Just to put this in context, this is to address agency turnover and retention. And you can see on this table here, our turnover rate has escalated here in recent years. Our turnover rate was 17.5%. Last fiscal year, and the first 6 months to date, the number of turnover we have, the amount of turnover we have would annualize into a 23.5% turnover rate. I will point out that the turnover rate at EPD is probably not as great as some other agencies. However, as a regulatory agency, a lot of our decisions are highly technical, frequently challenged. So for us, consistency, institutional knowledge is key, and having your entire workforce turnover every 6 years is not very conducive to those priorities. About 80% of our employees are environmental engineers, geologists, environmental compliance specialists, modelers, and laboratory scientists. These are the STEM professions, if you will. The competition for this talent is very tight. There's a lot of people that we have that people want, and when those people leave, trying to replace those folks, the talent pool is small, and there's a lot of competition for people with those types of skills. If you go to the next slide, why do folks leave EPD? Some of our departures, of course, are due to retirement or termination. However, most of our departures, about 80%, are voluntary. People are leaving primarily due to higher pay at a similar job someplace else. It's pretty typical that folks leaving EPD on a voluntary basis are going to the same job in another organization, making anywhere from 20% to 100% more money. I mean, I've seen folks who've doubled their salaries by going somewhere else after leaving EPD. Our biggest competitor recently has been the United States Environmental Protection Agency, which has an office just down the street here. Last year, we had 6 out of our 22 managers in our land branch leave for EPA. Each of those folks are leaving with about a 20% increase with the cost of living adjustments and responsibilities that are much, much smaller than what they had at EPD. When they do leave, it's very hard to replace them. If you look on that table there, the alignment's not great, but you can see our starting salary. The starting salary for an environmental compliance specialist is $30,000, an engineer is $43,000, and a geologist is $40,000. Just a reminder that all these positions require a bachelor's degree in a STEM field, and it's very hard for us to recruit at those levels. And the last table I want to point out, we've done a lot of pay comparisons with what EPD pays versus the private sector or other governmental agencies. One table I put here is just a simple way to look at it. Back in 2016, DOAS, as part of the JJCP project, did a market compensation study for many of our positions. And what I've done here is compare our current average pay for these positions with the pay in the 2016 market study. So this is 6 years ago. This is what the market was paying 6 years ago. Now it's 15 to 20% higher than that. And even what we pay today is significantly below what the market was paying back in 2016. So bottom line here, the $5,000 pay raise that's contained in the governor's budget proposal, I think will do a lot of good for us. It's a good step to get us a little more competitive. The next item we have is 34.3.2. This is a truing up of the Lanier storage contract for roughly $2.8 million. This is just simply a true up of the amount provided by this body in the amended fiscal year 19 budget. Back in 2017, the state of Georgia reached an agreement with the Corps of Engineers to allocate about 253,000 acre feet of storage in Lake Lanier to meet the projected municipal industrial water needs for the area through 2050. At the time, we thought the cost of the contract would be what's in the current budget, roughly $14 million. But if you look at the second column there, the actual cost of the state was closer to $16 million. So the amount you see in the budget is partially truing up this number, truing up the annual operation and maintenance cost, as well as putting in our budget the amount of interest we've accrued through 2021. So this is simply a true up of the amount previously appropriated, $2,787,792. The last item, 34.3.3, represents our capital request, and in the governor's proposed budget, he just put it in the cash portion of the budget for the amended fiscal year. There's two pieces there. One piece is fleet replacement. Our fleet in general is pretty good. You can see there our average age is 8 years. Average mileage is only 66,000, so that looks pretty good. But we have about 39 vehicles that are eligible for replacement based upon DOAS's replacement methodology, and this would replace 25 of those 39. Each of these vehicles have mileage well over 100,000 and are over 10 years old. So that's 687,500 of 34.3.3. The remaining amount is lab equipment. We have a request to purchase 8 pieces of lab equipment at a cost of $733,000. 6 of the 8 pieces of equipment are to replace existing instruments that have exceeded the manufacturer's support period, generally 10 or 20 years old. And then there's also 2 new pieces of equipment related to drinking water to help us keep up with emerging regulatory requirements and to process samples more efficiently. Mr. Chairman, that's the governor's proposed budget. I will point out there is an item in the DCA budget. I'll get you in a number. It's not going to be on your tracking sheet because I don't believe that's under the jurisdiction of this committee, but it is, if you're interested, 16.14.1. It's $1.7 million, and that is for a storage contract at Lake Alatoona, which is very similar to the Lanier agreement that I described. It's just about 5 years behind that. And that's to meet the water supply needs for customers served by the city of Cartersville and the Cobb Marietta Water Authority. Mr. Chairman, that's the governor's amended year budget for EPD, and I'll be happy to answer yours or any other members' questions.
All right. Well, I think we've got a few here, but you did a good job. Most of my questions got answered, but let's go ahead and get started.
Okay.
24, Whit Patchett.
Rick, thanks for your presentation. I had some questions as you went along. They did get answered as far as your biggest competitor, which seems to be the U.S. government. As far as retaining employees, what other entities are taking those employees? Who else is?
So
some examples.
It'll be the private sector, it'll be private companies who need for the environmental staff, Georgia Power, pulp and paper industry, things like that. Also county and local governments as well. But the biggest ones right now seems to be US EPA. He's going on quite a hiring spree and seems to be focused upon our employees.
Mr. Chairman, one other question. this is my 12th budget I'm sitting through, and seems every year we hear from different people about how far behind we in the state are with our salaries and being competitive other places. Have you put together a plan to get you to where you think you need to be to retain people and presented it to either the governor or us or anybody?
Yes, and
Okay.
as I said before, I think the governor's proposal of $5,000 is a good start. Where in some of our positions, again, our turnover is primarily focused upon our engineers, our geologists, our environmental compliance specialists, our modelers, and our laboratory staff. This $5,000 will be a big step, but there's still probably some headroom there that will make us truly equitable, but at least I think the $5,000 will make us competitive and allow people or give people a reason to stay.
Well, I'd love to see any other plan you might have for us,
Absolutely.
since you've lost 81 people in the first 6 months.
It's
of the
tough.
year. I would love to see what else you might need.
We will,
So,
I'll be happy to talk to you about and provide you some information on that.
okay. Thank you.
All right. Representative Prince.
Thank you, sir, for this presentation.
Absolutely.
Quick question. I mean, I see your budget, but as far as coal ash, I don't think you talked a lot about it. Are we going to need any additional funds to make sure we are in line with the EPA, and
Yes.
where are we going to ask for those?
So I believe it was the 19 budget, Aaron. Last year's budget, I'm sorry. We were able to add new positions that would help us staff up, that would allow us to meet the staffing requirements we would need for the delegation of that CCR rule from EPA to the state. So we're fully staffed for that, thanks to the actions from this General Assembly previously.
Good. And just one more. Going back to with Patrick, as far as recruiting and things like that, have you guys ever thought of, or are you maybe reaching out to some of these HBCUs or working with the Board of Regents to maybe sort of work out some type of programs that we can start?
Yeah, I can't say we've worked directly with the Board of Regents. I will say we've been very active at college recruiting fairs and the like in trying to get people, EPD is an opportunity, particularly as you're starting your career. And again, we understand that people will move on, but we think this is a good place to start. And we have been very active in that regard.
Good, I think so.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. Going back on a couple of questions that have been asked about salaries. I'm thrilled to see the $5,000 for state employees across the board. That's great. But I also know that $5,000 for certain employees is a bigger percentage increase than those that are at the top of your pay scale. And it
Right.
sounds like to me, those are the employees that you have, and those are the ones that you're losing, whether that's to EPA or paper mills or Georgia Power, or whoever it is. So I would like if you could expand a little bit more specifically on literally what are these people leaving to make at EPA and Georgia Power? And is $5,000 a quarter of that? Is it an eighth of that? Is it a drop in the bucket? I mean, we really can't advocate on behalf of the state employees the way we need to if we don't have more specific information. And I feel right now very, very lacking in that specific information.
Yeah. So I'll say a couple of things and hopefully this will be helpful. I don't think EPD is probably representative of every state agency. The type of staff we're seeking are highly technical. As I said, almost every one of our jobs requires a STEM major at a minimum. Very often we have folks with masters or PhD. So we have a expensive employee that we generally hire. I will tell you that probably to obtain equity with the private sector, and I'm not quite sure that's our goal, but if we wanted, we can offer a lot of other things besides, same pay, but to provide equity with the private sector, those salaries would probably have to increase about 30%. And to try to put it in context, I don't have the numbers here to do the calculation, but it's common for an engineer to make $45,000, $50,000. And we'd probably need, for example, 33% or 30% on top of that to be equitable with the private sector, if that's our goal. Does that help?
It does. Thank you.
Director, I guess along those same lines, I know we've had conversations about this when we've made a lot of our budget cuts. You have a lot of your employees that are partially state funded and some are federal money funded. So how do we, is the raise applied
Mhm.
the same, or how does that look from, if you're 50% state and 50% federal, what does that do? And does that help, or is there any way to move any of them back to state funds where they can get the 5,000 or be more competitive, or? what?
It's a big challenge. I mentioned earlier that about 30% of our budget are state funds. And when we get money for a pay increase, it's the state funds portion, which means we have to come up with the other 70%. And it's not like the other 70% is just sitting around. We're going to have to reallocate some of our federal and other funds towards salaries that we were previously using for other things such as contracts. I will tell you, at EPD, our number one priority is to make sure we are able to offer our employees this $5,000 raise. So we're going to do whatever we can. Any other things that we're spending the federal and other funds on, that's a lower priority than trying to ensure that our employees are able to get this full raise. And to be honest, it's something we're still working on how we're going to arrange to do that. That's that's a big delta to overcome.
Right. Okay, good. Well, keep us posted on that.
We'll do.
And just for the committee and for everybody in the room, we've got Chairman Lynn Smith online and Representative Wiedauer and Floor Leader Stephen Meeks all online. So just wanted to give them a plug there. Anybody have any questions online? I don't see any more questions in the room. Director, I think that's it. Thank you for the
Thank you,
job
Mr.
that y'all do
Chair. I
over there.
plan to be around in case anyone has
Oh,
additional
hold on.
questions.
You didn't get away fast enough.
Okay.
Floor Leader Meeks has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Dunn, thank you for being with us today, and thanks for working on my issue from earlier this morning. In terms of your employees, what percent of your employees currently would be eligible for retirement if that's something they chose to do?
Well, Representative Meeks, that's a great question. It's I don't have a number off the top of my head, but it is a fairly large proportion. I mean, do you have any idea, Aaron? Let me get the number for you. We tend to have a lot of turnover at the entry level.
Right.
Folks who've been in the state for a while, they are the ones that are close to retirement and not a lot in the middle, if that makes sense.
Okay, absolutely. And just to follow up on the chairman's question of partially funded from, federal versus state, are those appointments considered dual appointments or dual employees? How does that work? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so they're not considered to be dual appointees. A lot of the federal funds we receive, frankly, is support to the states to administer federal law. And it doesn't cover all of our costs to do so. One thing I would point out that may be helpful thinking about this, our federal funds, some agency, for example, the more state funds you spend, the more federal funds you receive. That's not the case with EPD's federal funds. Our federal funds are grants to accomplish specific purposes. They're not fungible or not as fungible as state funds. They're just grants to support the state programs, to answer your question, Representative Meeks. And again, it's not dependent. The fact that we're spending more state money, state dollars, does not mean we get more federal dollars.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Does
All
that
right.
make sense, Mr. Chair? Okay.
Yep, gotcha. All right. I believe that's it.
I'm going to
Director.
take my opportunity to sit down then.
Yep, you better hurry, run. Good deal. Thank you for what y'all do. All right, next up, we've got Secretary of State. Mr. Secretary, come on down. We'll let you sit at the table or whatever's best for you.
Good afternoon, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Floor is yours whenever you're ready. For the members, this is section 43, should be page 16 on your tracking sheet.
Okay. You've got that then. Proposed amended budget tracking document, page 16. So our office is organized into several divisions: corporations, elections, administration, professional licensing, investigations, and securities and charities. So looking at the divisions on your tracking sheet, You will note that like all parts of Georgia's government, the biggest budget change we have this year involves the raises for employees. Another budget change involves our investigations division getting desperately needed vehicles to replace much of our aging fleet of vehicles. Outside of what we have of that, we're flat in our operational budget. In corporations, on line 43.1, you will notice that there are no state dollars going to fund this important division. We are 100% self-funded. And we do that from expedite fees paid by users. Despite there being no state dollars, we'll be doing the pay raises that are proposed in the budget for the 48 positions that we have in this division as a matter of fairness for all of those employees. And that's going to run us about $390,000 to match that raise. Corporations has been running smoothly while we made many upgrades, including allowing for the multi-year renewals. In fiscal 2021, 118,400 businesses renewed using the multi-year option. Like you, we want to make doing business in Georgia as easy as possible for everyone here in Georgia, and that's part of the process. In the last fiscal year, despite COVID, we actually saw record new business formation with 345,503 new filings. And that's an 82% increase over fiscal year 2020. And that's a 112% increase over fiscal 2019. It's pretty amazing. This office processed a total of all corporation filings of 1.4 million, 1,414,301 to be exact. That is obviously a record number. And our team did this with no state dollars allocated to this corporations division. As we go into the next fiscal year, I would like to ask that you would see fit to up the retained line item for us to more appropriately budget and take it from $4,204,852 to about $4.9 million. This will allow us to better baseline our budget at the start of the fiscal year and reflect the pay raises plus some additional IT cost. Now, next one that brings us to is elections, and elections is line 43.2. The pay raise for this division totals $121,171 on line 43.2.1. That's of the tracking document. There's something I would like you to be aware of that was asked by Chairman Englet and Chairman Tiller right before our joint budget presentation last week. It has to do with the postage cost. It has to do with the postage of the mailing for the new precinct cards to voters to reflect the newly redistricted lines for voters. State Code 21-2-226F states that counties can request reimbursement from the state for the postage to send these cards out if those monies are appropriated. We anticipate that the counties making the request will be requesting you for reimbursement. And how we can fulfill that is really dependent on how much is budgeted for that purpose. So as the law makes reference to the need of any dollars, it has to be reimbursed by budgeted for that specific purpose. As an estimate, there's approximately 7.7 million voters who will receive these new precinct cards. If they are sent pre-sort first class, as they should be, which is 33.5 cents a piece, the overall cost for the counties through the state will be about $2,579,000. $2,579,000. And I believe that the counties have already been talking to all of you. I just wanted to bring that to your attention as these mailings will be done in FY22 prior to the May primary elections, and your counties are going to probably give you a call. Next, we come to investigations on line 43.3. I've never let an opportunity to get by me without letting you know that we need more investigators and more resources for them. The $5,000 will again hopefully help us to recruit and retain these important people in the investigations division, including both our post-certified investigators as well as the inspectors. The pay increase raises the fiscal 2022 budget in this division by $218,108, as seen in line 43.3.1. We are very grateful. We are very grateful for the appropriation for 23 vehicles. The reason we're so grateful is that we had cars out there with well over 150,000 miles. They were just beat up, and we're spending lots of money just to keep them on the road. And so our hardworking post-certified officers needed those vehicles. And so I'm really grateful. Thank you that you've included, or the governor has included that in the proposed budget. And I hope you all look on that favorably also. It totals $357,397, and that's reflected in line 43.3.2. Our administration division on line 43.4, and that's 43.4, is picking up $102,995 shown on line 43.4.1 for the raises there. This division, like many others, has had difficulties hiring and retaining talent, especially in the accounting and IT arenas, as you just heard from the previous speaker. Next up is our professional licensing division, which is on line 43.5. We have 42 licensing boards that currently license 544,969 people in various trades and professions. The budget change here is solely the pay raise for the employees of $563,445 noted on line 43.5.1. Here's another good good luck story or great news. We are seeing record applications. Georgia is just a tremendous state and business is booming. There is already growth because of population gain, but the pandemic has just kicked it into higher gear. We've seen a growth of applications from approximately 1,100 applications per week to approximately now 1,500 per week. While we have imposed policies and procedures to issue record number of licenses each week, the volume is continuing to grow. We are having a very difficult time recruiting and retaining staff here, so the $5,000 annual increase will hopefully help, but we anticipate staffing will still lag behind the workload growth. My team has been working a process of analysis and assessment to outline what we will need to modernize our licensing system. That is an ongoing process that will help with getting Georgians to work in the professions of their choice. Like you, I want you to know that we've made sure that both our active military and military spouses get priority. As easy as the easy path as possible to be properly licensed. They move to the front of the line. And I think that that's something that every representative and state senator supports. Our policy already places all of them at the front of the lines to be processed. And the new system that we're looking at, we are in the process of building, will allow for better tracking to assure that they will be able to process as quickly as possible. We're also aware of the nursing shortage, so we put more resources towards supporting the nursing board to move as many nurses into the field as possible. And by more resources, I mean human resources, more personnel. This remains a priority for our office. The final division I'd like to review is securities and charities. They are on line 43.6. Its increase for the raise totals $42,410 as noted on line 43.6.1. You can tell by the relatively small amount that this is a lean organization. It is incredibly efficient at what it does. I anticipate 2022 will be another year of unexpected challenges and a success. I want to thank you for your work and your time here today. I and my staff stand ready to help you meet your goals for the people of Georgia. I stand ready for any questions.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Good job there. And I think we do have some questions. We're going to start again with Whip Patchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I am really confused about
sir.
43.1 in corporations.
Yes, sir.
I just don't see how you can have a $0 in state funds, because I was under the impression that all funds that are generated by the state and submitted to the state go to the general fund. So I need some help there.
It's the expedite fees, that they actually would stay with us. Years, it probably would have been 3 years ago with Chairman England. That's one of the things that, we basically used to operate on an operating budget. But what we've been doing is adding to the expedite fees, and that's how we run that division now. And that
But
we've
it's
done that.
still money that comes to the state.
Right.
And we can't see anything that you're doing with it.
Well, that's how we run the division. So we could break that out for you, but that's in effect how that we've not used a single state dollar. It's people that filing late, that we've added a late charge, and it adds up to a significant amount. Gabriel?
Gabe, yeah, come on down. Appreciate you being here as well, sir.
Real quickly, as I understand it, basically, everything that's passed in the law does go back to the state. Everything we do above and beyond what the law calls for is retained revenue, which we get to allow to keep for your offices to run. Like in elections, we sell voter lists. That's retained revenue because it goes above and beyond what the law calls for. And that's the way it's been in this office. They've been running expedite fees for about at least since the Handel administration, I believe. That's how most of the money comes from. Even beforehand, there was only a $439,000 appropriation in the previous budgets going forward that it stayed pretty flat. The vast majority of the monies were those retained revenues. And that's because it's above and beyond the law, where the law calls for. Every fee that the law dictates goes back to the state. That's the way the attorneys have explained it to me.
Well, they're just confused. I mean, Department of Revenue collects all our money, basically, and I'm sure there are fines and penalties there that still, I guess, go to the state, and
And fines and penalties are defined within the law. That's what's supposed to go back to this. This is, let's say as an example, I'm a corporation and I want to file the same day. So there's a way you can do it within 1 hour. You can pay $1,000. And those are the monies that come to that the corporations division gets to keep from the Secretary of State. And as I said, it's been this way for, I believe at a minimum since the Handel administration, if not before then.
Okay, another question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
It may be related, it may not be, but I would love for you, and you had to know this was going to come up, to explain to us the registration software and where the $3.5 million came from that was spent on that, and how that came about and went about. I'd just love to hear where did that money come from?
That came from HAVA dollars, the Help America Vote Act, and for that's one of the federal uses that you can use, and also then from the bond money that we had left over.
Was that bond money not redirected already somewhere else, or?
No, it hadn't been reassigned yet.
So how much was there that it was like 40 something million? What there,
Oh.
didn't we put in $150 million bond package
Right.
and the bid was only 101?
No, we purchased additional equipment. The total that we spent on the bond originally
It's about 139 million.
130.
And
There's
how was the company chosen that you chose to do that?
They're already doing state contracts with the state of Georgia.
It was a DOAS bid contract through Carasoft for the Salesforce database management system.
Just to follow up on the corporation's question, just clarify. So that you're currently getting in 4.2 million, and you're wanting to retain, or you're getting 4.9 and you're wanting to retain, you're currently 4.2. So you're wanting to retain an additional 600,000-700,000.
Right, because you have your salary increases that have gone up. So that's really in effect, I don't call it legacy cost, but that's our new baseline for next year then.
It's
Okay.
an internal administrative thing. 'Cause what happens is we have to budget for the year. As we get more dollars in, we have things that no budget exists, which is just a difficult thing to go through the accounting process. So we can do it on the front end. It just makes managing it all a little bit easier.
And that'll be strictly used for raises in that division.
Yeah, that's the only thing we've got. The only thing that's new this year are the $5,000 raises and the vehicles.
And
Okay.
anything inside corporations has to stay within corporations. You can't cross divisions with the dollars that are retained.
Okay. All right, Representative Prince.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Based on the numbers or the law, and then the number you gave us about having to mail out these new registrations and things, is that I mean, are we not gonna try to put that somewhere or? I'm just trying to figure, is this an unfunded request that we're gonna put on the counties or something that,
Representative, we follow your policy, we follow your budget.
That was my follow-up question was, who knows about this expenditure? And I know you mentioned England and Chairman Tillery and Chairman England, but
Well, we know about it, the counties know about it, and
I know that,
ACCG.
yeah, the counties know
ACCG
about
knows
it. I know
it.
they've already talked
Yes.
about it. Yeah.
And they're calling everyone that is going to be looking at that because it's really for them. I don't want to divide that by 159. Larger counties have a bigger budget, but you can figure out what that is, but it's a cost. And obviously what it really hurts, I think, are your smaller rural counties.
No. Okay. All right. Vice Chairman Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, because I have already heard from my county it's an additional cost to them they didn't have in their budget. It's somewhere around 20,000 for a small county as Catoosa is. So I imagine it's quite a bit more for the larger counties, but thank you, sir.
One thing, it's unrelated but similar, but we did do a grant program during the pandemic. And it was like sometimes it would be a grant of $5,000 for all counties. And we realized that really helped the smaller counties more than the larger counties.
Okay. All right, Mr. Secretary, I don't see any other questions. I did have something and I didn't think about it last week, but, and I know EPD has mentioned they're purchasing 25 vehicles and you're purchasing 23 vehicles. And it seems like there's going to be a lot of vehicles purchased throughout the budget, but, and it's probably not a question for you, but I was just curious. It's kind of hard to get vehicles in these days. Are we going to be able to get them in a timely manner and it may be something we can talk about later with DOAS, but
If you put it in the budget, then we'll start the process of procurement, but that'll obviously be based on what we can get. But even we have some that are really in bad shape, that are well over 150,000, and you just keep on working down the list. But we're just grateful that it's been put in the governor's budget.
okay.
We started the process of looking based on the catalog we have out of DOAS. And it looks like Kia will be getting a lot of orders from the state of Georgia over the next few months.
Good. That's good to hear. I'm sure they appreciate that. So good deal. All right. Any questions online? No questions online. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Appreciate what you do.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right. Next, we've got Georgia Building Authority. Come on down. And state properties. Marty Smith, Gerald Pilgrim. I know y'all got a crowd, some other special guests that have come with you. So the Commissioner Ward back there. So thank y'all for being here. We don't get to hear from y'all a lot, so it's always good to hear from you. And it sounds like you've got a lot going on. So I guess that's why you're here.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon and appreciate you, Chairman Watson.
Hold on, section 36, page 13. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
All right, go ahead.
Well, Chairman Watson and committee members, we do appreciate you. I'm Marty Smith with the State Property Officer, and we want to thank y'all for being able to be here today and to discuss the fiscal year 2022 amended budget as well. Under my preview as leadership, we do have 3 divisions. We've got the State Properties Commission, SPC, which is the real estate division from our arena. Next, you have GSFIC, Georgia State Finance and Investment Commission, the construction division, to where we manage the construction and the project management of projects across it. It's that legislative arm right there too. And then we got the GBA, the Georgia Building Authority, that handles primarily all the facilities here on Capitol Hill. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the director of the Georgia Building Authority, Mr. Gerald Pilgrim.
Chairman, we'll keep it brief. We just want to kind of give you a little bit of an overview over a couple of projects that happened in last year's budget, kind of quick update on that. Last year, the state, y'all appropriated $2.5 million to the Georgia Building Authority to start the design and remodel process for the law building, where the Attorney General is, the old Supreme Court Appeals Court facilities. So we're well on the way with that. You're going to see in the 23 bond package, there's $30 million that's going to be that's been put into that the governor's request. to start the construction on that and remodel. So that will allow us to be able to bring in all the Attorney General's office to consolidate them from over in the towers and in some of the other buildings on Capitol Hill, mostly into the law building. There was also another project. I think when we spoke to you last year, we weren't aware about this project. It got added on the Senate side and then got brought in on the Joint Committee. There was $1.5 million added to us for a new wellness center on Capitol Hill. The Wellness Center will be located in the 244 Washington Street building. It's the old CLOB cafeteria. So that's going to be state-of-the-art equipment and facilities with showers, locker rooms, and everything for all state employees to be able to utilize. So we're hoping to have that. We've had a little bit of construction issues. We were hoping to have that during session open, but we had a little construction issues we've got to work on. So it'll be summer. We'll have that facility open. So we're real excited about those projects that are coming on. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to Frank Smith about another from last year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Frank Smith, I'm the Deputy Director at State Properties. Just wanted to let you all know and thank you again for last year's amended budget. You appropriated $1 million for a space utilization study on Capitol Hill. Looking forward to coming and presenting to this committee again the 2023 governor's recommendation and some funds that will for the implementation of that, really focused on 2 Peachtree and how we can get those 4 healthcare tenants, state agencies back here on Capitol Hill. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank and Gerald. With that, if State Properties Commission, the recommendation starts on page 279 or page 13 from the House Budget Office. On page 280, you will see that the governor is recommending $432.5 million for state prison facility transformation. Our organization has the resources and the expertise to put together a team and a project team to work along with the corrections to ensure that they get a timely and a very economical construction of a first-class new facility that meets the operational needs of the Department of Corrections. We're lucky today to get Commissioner Mr. Tim Ward along with us, and between our 2 teams, we hope that we can answer any questions you've got.
Commissioner, you want to come down and maybe just, you don't have to give us all the details, but just out of curiosity, and this may be for both of you, I know normally a lot of the time it seems like the agencies handle the construction and kind of the money kind of goes through them and not through you directly. This project is obviously very big, but could you just maybe comment on that and why we're doing it kind of?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason is Georgia Building Authority being able to hold and maintain and carry over a project from year to year is the big thing. And for us through the GISFIC side, being able to put that procurement team together and work as a team to make sure this project is completed.
So it's kind of based because of the size of the projects and it's going to take multiple years. It's not a change of policy and what we're doing. Okay.
Yeah, and our intent, sir, I'm glad to be here today. Our intent with the initial investment is to purchase a existing facility and then also do design and build a new one. So that's what the $423 million is designed for.
And what will happen with the old? Will there be an old facility or will you be repurposing?
We're gonna decommission several of our older facilities. One being Georgia State Prison down in Reedsville. We understand that facility has a historical value, but we're going to repurpose that facility, but repurpose it without offenders at that facility.
Okay. All right. Well, I got a couple lights up right here. So let me start with Whip Hatchet real quick. Do you have something?
This is really not a serious inquiry for Mr. Pilgrim. So are we going to name the wellness center after Jeff Mullis?
Yes, sir. It is. He is going to be, he is going to be volunteering as our on-site instructor for exercise classes.
Since I know he's sponsored, since I know he had a piece of legislation making sure that got done. So I just had to have some fun.
Thank y'all for y'all's endorsement of that project.
Yeah, that's a good one there, Mr. Whip. I wasn't gonna say it. I may have a bill going to his committee, but no, I had a couple about the law building over here. I know we heard from the Public Service Commission last week, and their workload has almost doubled, and I think maybe even in the study, they were told that they needed to be using less space. But yet their workload has doubled, and I know during COVID, they've had limitations there. And I guess who decides, and how do we decide who's going where they're going to go? And
there were discussion. I think that's one of the things that Frank did. There was, when they do a space on who's telework and those type of stuff, but there was no reduction in their space. There's no recommendation from the Properties Commission looked at it. I think when we brought in the team of experts with the utilization of what they're currently at, their thought was, but our needs, the Building Authority and Properties Commission did not recommend that in any of our presentations that when we've talked to OPB and the governor's office, that's not something that's in consideration. I know there was some consideration that as we're doing the restack, basically throughout Capitol Hill, and it's quite a large project, the $45 million that you'll see in the 23 budget. Hopefully that will, when we get everybody in and we have space, we consolidate space, that'll open some more space that'll be on this side of the hill, that there's a large, I know they've requested a large committee room or meeting room.
hearing room, yeah.
And if we're able to open up space in either the 254 building or 244 building, that would be something to have an option at that time.
Okay.
But one of the things too, is if they have any large meetings now working with public safety, the Georgia Department of Public Safety, Colonel Wright, Major King, which is over the hill, he has offered the auditorium that's over at Post 50, which is the old Capital Ed Auditorium, seats several for about 300 people. They've offered that to be used anytime that any agency needs to use it. They're welcome to use their facilities.
So will those hearing rooms that are in the law building, the old law building, will they no longer be hearing rooms?
They'll go away under the plan that we've seen. Those will become offices. The Attorney General's office would actually move to the 6th floor. Those rooms would actually be reconfigured into offices for staff.
Okay. And I know it's kind of 23, but kind of plays into all of it. The 2 Peachtree, moving people down, what happens to 2 Peachtree? Is that building going to be empty?
That building is, our direction would be to, if everything's included in the budget and we're able to get the funds, our direction would be to try to get everyone relocated to the hill as fast as we can. So within the next year, hopefully. And then the Building Authority then would be looking to dispose of the property, sell it, those type things. And, really, we're not interested if we sold the building. People want to buy the building, but they want long-term tenants in the building. And the state could not commit to being long-term tenants. I mean, the employees that are over there, currently it's occupied less than 10% of the staff that's assigned to that building are actually working from that building. So there's been a lot of things to using teleworking, economizing, and then be able to bring them on the hill. So hopefully increase that a little bit more, but I think we'll be able to absorb them in the hill and then dispose of that property and hopefully have it redeveloped for the city of Atlanta.
Okay. So if they have a big hearing come up and they need more space, they need to reach out to you guys, and public safety's got something they can use.
If they will work out with us, and then if it's not during the legislative session, the House and the Senate have always been very accommodating if we ever have a request for that. So if they have a big meeting though, we do have a facility that'll hold 400 people in an auditorium style seating.
Okay, good.
And it would have public safety there, security officers there. So.
Right. Well, and I know that was some of their concerns. Their workload has doubled. They've got a lot of hearings already set up, and security, and then with COVID on top of that, and having enough space. And again, they are the Public Service Commission, so we want to make sure that everybody can be there and be in attendance.
And Building Authority will help them and help staff to get people to know where to find it and those type of stuff, and help them advertise it if they do decide to ever meet over in those locations.
All right, good deal. And one more back on the prison transformation. Will that go in a certain location in the state? I'm assuming that's already.
My ultimate goal is to redesign and build a new facility back in Tattenall County.
Okay, good. All right. Well, I know they'll appreciate that. I'm sure it's a large employer there. All right. Anybody else? All right. I don't see any other lights. So thank y'all for being here. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Appreciate what y'all are all doing. And hold on, let me make sure there's no questions online. No questions online either. So, all right, with that being said, thank you, everybody, for being here, and we are adjourned. Committee will be meeting again tomorrow at 4 o'clock.